There are so many sewing tools that it is impossible to know and try them all. In this video, I want to share a few sewing tools that I didn't know about until very recently, but I bought them, tested, and want to share with you as well. So we will begin with my favorite tool on this list, and it's a winged needle. When we first look at the winged needle and compare it to the standard sewing machine needle, you can notice that the winged needle is much wider than the sewing machine needle. Now, when we install the winged needle on our sewing machine, let's select one of the decorative stitches and start sewing. When we are sewing the decorative seam, the needle not only sews the stitch, but because of those thick, wide wings, it pierces the fabric, creating a hole. And because of that, using this winged needle and pairing it with decorative stitch, we can create the hem stitch, a technique that is traditionally made only by hand. But when we can make it on sewing machine, we of course can make it much faster. Now, the hem stitch is usually used whenever we're sewing decorative items like tablecloths and finishing the hems. However, let's take a look on how beautiful of a hem this particular needle can create without adding any bulk on the seam allowance of the hem. Because of that, I think it's going to look absolutely amazing as the hem stitch on, let's say, lightweight blouse or shirt. Using this needle, you can of course add decorative elements on your garments as well and create that wow effect. Now, if you're having trouble sewing with this particular needle, a good idea is to slip a tearaway stabilizer underneath, and it will make piercing the fabric and feeding it through the sewing machine much more easy. I absolutely love sewing with this needle, and I think it creates a very beautiful effect. It doesn't cost much, so I do believe that having this tool in your sewing tool collection is definitely worth it. Now, the second tool that I wanted to show in today's video is even more unusual, and it's the rose maker. It looks really strange, but it creates these beautiful roses from a piece of fabric. Now, to use this tool, you want to take a piece of fabric and put it between two template pieces. Then, according to the template instructions, you're going to fold and hand stitch the top of the seam allowance, and you continue doing this until you create again the circle from the template. Then you carefully remove the template, pull the thread, and finish creating the rose. What I liked about this particular tool is that it comes with very detailed, very good instructions showing each and every step how to use this tool. It's quite an unusual tool. I did not know how to use it when I first took it out of the packaging, and the instructions were very helpful. Now, I really want to emphasize on that, because sometimes when you buy a very unusual item and it doesn't come with instructions, you may make quite a few mistakes while trying to use it. But when the manual is very clear, you can successfully use tools that you've never seen before. Using this technique, you can create different types of roses, and it's a rather quick process. So if you have a project that you want to add lots of flowers to, just remember this little tool. Also, you don't need that much fabric to create these roses, so I think that it's a very good fabric scrap idea. This tool is by company Clover. They have quite a few templates, so if you don't want this particular size or this particular style of the flowers, they do have some other sizes and templates available. I will link this tool and all other tools I'll mention in today's video in the description box down below. Now, this third item I want to show you today, I actually haven't tried it myself, so we will try it in this video, and it's waterproofing spray. Now, of course, the waterproof spray is nothing new, and you most likely bought at one point in your life the waterproofing spray for, let's say, your shoes. But for some reason, until I saw the specifically marked for fabrics waterproofing spray, it never occurred to me that I can use it for my sewing projects as well. So where I want to use this is I actually want to create a bag from scraps of fabric that I have left from making these absolutely beautiful pants. I made these pants early in the spring. I made them using Burda style pattern from almost 30 years ago, and they're hands down one of my favorite pants I ever made. They're so extremely comfortable and very, very stylish, even though the pattern itself is almost 30 years old. Now from this project I have a few scraps of fabric left, and I didn't want to throw them out, but they were not big enough to create any additional garment. So I decided I will make a bag, and to make the bag even more baggy, I'm going to use the waterproofing spray. So now let's do a test and test out how well this spray actually works. So now we have a few pieces of fabric, so I'm going to spray the spray on few pieces, and I'm going to leave other ones without any spray, just so later on we can go ahead and see how well the spray actually works. So now that the spray is applied, let's wait for 12 hours and see the results. In 24 hours I let them dry for the whole day, and here are the results. On the white and beige color fabrics, the waterproofing spray is completely invisible, but on this fabric, the darker fabric, the dark green fabric, we see this kind of bubbles piling up. They rub off quite easily, but you still have to do it, and the texture is not very pleasant. It feels very, very greasy and quite oily. On these fabrics not so much, but this one, it does feel very, very greasy, and I will have to wash my hand with soap after touching the fabric. So now let's do the test how well the waterproofing spray works. I have two pieces of the same fabric. This one has been waterproofed, this one is not. Here I mark that it's not waterproofed, and underneath I have brown color paper, because if it does get wet it will change the color. So I'm just going to add a few drops on each fabric. Oh, we can see very well the results, right? On this fabric that has been waterproofed, nothing goes through, right? The drops are staying very well, they don't seep into the fabric, and here everything just went straight down. Here we can see that the paper is getting wet. Let's do the same trick with other fabrics. There is also two pieces of canvas. This one has been waterproof, this one is not. Same exact technique. This fabric is a bit more coarse, it's not as dense as the previous fabric, so I'm really interested to see how this test is going held. Oh, it holds up very nicely. Oh, but you can see that even on the fabric that has not been waterproofed, it doesn't seep into the fabric that much. So for this particular fabric, the waterproofing worked, but also the non-waterproof part also does not soak in water as fast. So let's try with the final fabric that I have. This is the final fabric that I have. This is cotton with a little bit of elastane, waterproofed and non-waterproofed. Oh, it immediately absorbs, and the waterproofed does not absorb at all. So this waterproofing spray does work quite well. So this waterproofing spray works well on all three types of fabrics that we tried. So it's a win. Now, before we move on further into the video, I want to tell you about my new course for skirt pattern making, fitting, and sewing. In this course, I teach not only classic sewing techniques, but I also teach how to make the pattern based on your body measurements. The skirt pattern was the very first item that I made when I started going to the sewing school, and to this day, I still remember that effect when I first tried on a skirt that was made based on my own body measurements, and how comfortable it was and how well fitted it was. For me, knowing how to make my own patterns was an absolute game changer, and I want to share this knowledge with you as well. In this course, you will learn how to create the basic block based on your own body measurements and change it depending on what style of the skirt you want. Not only that, I will show you how to also fit a ready-made patterns to fit your figure. And of course, we're going to sew two classic skirts using timeless sewing techniques. You will see that there is no magic in sewing, but you can apply small changes in your sewing routine and really get those professional looking results. So if you want to start making your own skirts that are created specifically for your figure and are made using timeless sewing techniques, I will link the course in the description box down below. Now let's move on to another very interesting item I want to share, and it's the double-sided tape. Now I actually bought this tape a year ago. I saw it on Instagram by one of my favorite Instagram accounts, Katy Teacher. She has lots of years in professional industry and she shared this particular tape. Now of course, the same day I saw her using this double-sided tape, I bought it myself as well. It's actually a very cheap item to have. I bought it in a fabric supply store, though I have to admit that very few sewing supply stores do carry this particular item. So what is the purpose of this particular tape? So from time to time you will come across a certain fabric that you want to press the seam open, but the fabric does not want to be pressed open, and no matter how well you try to press it, it still does not lay nicely flat. Now in some cases you can solve it by doing top stitching, but of course top stitching is not always the right solution. So the right solution in this case will be using this double-sided tape. You just go ahead and put one side on the fabric, peel off the protective sticker and place the seam allowance on top, creating a very flat effect. So this is not an item you will have to use a lot, because personally in this span of whole year I probably used it on 2 projects. One of the projects was this particular dress. Now fabric for this particular dress was incredibly stubborn, and no matter how well I tried to press it, it did not want to stay in shape. So for the seams, for all those open press seams, I had to use this tape, and even after a year of being in the closet hung, the glues are still staying very well intact and holding the seam allowance in place. The one particular nuance about this particular tape is that once you apply it, it's best not to sew over it because it has lots of glue and it's kind of difficult to pierce. So even if you sew a few stitches over this tape, you most likely are going to ruin your sewing machine needle and it will get very gluey and sticky. But other than that, I think it's a really good useful item to have in your sewing collection, and you won't need it very often, but sometimes it will be the project savior. And the final item I wanted to share in today's video, I actually have nothing to show. Now I debated if I should share this story and this tool or not, because well, it broke when I first tried to use it. So I've seen the triple needle on the internet and of course I wanted to try it out. Of course, as the name suggests, the triple needle has 3 needle heads on one needle. So this is how it looks compared to the twin needle, which is a common sewing machine needle. Now when we're sewing with twin needle, usually we are hemming knit fabrics to create an elastic hem, but also twin needle can be used to sew decorative stitches where you're kind of repeating the same stitch with both needles and thus creating the double effect. So with the triple needle, you can create the triple decorative effect. And this is what I really wanted to try out, and the first time I was going to use this needle, I even filmed because I wanted to capture all the emotions and how it looks. And when I was sewing the first 5 centimeters, one of the 3 needles broke. So all I have left from this test and from this tool to show you is the 5 centimeters I sew using this needle, and you can see that in one seam I even still have the broken needle head stuck. Now, I don't want to say that this was a faulty item because most likely, let's be honest, it's probably the user error as it is in most of these cases. Probably I have done something wrong, maybe I threaded machine wrong, even though I did read all the instructions, even though I did read quite a few blog posts about how to use this particular needle, but it still broke down. Now, because I was only making sample for this video, so that's not really a big issue for for me. I just don't have that many great visual effects to share with you today. But if I was adding this on some kind of project and the needle broke in the middle of the project, I would probably be much more upset than I am now. So my recommendation, if you would like to try the triple needle, don't make my mistake and go ahead and buy at least a few needles at once so that in case it breaks, you have a replacement. Now, this needle is not in particularly very easy to work with because it does require checking out if your machine can sew with it and which stitches it does. But if you are able to sew with it, you can create quite an interesting decorative stitch. Now again, it didn't work out for me this time, but maybe in a while I will buy a few more and give it a try again. So here are all unusual sewing tools I wanted to share today, and if you have any other sewing tool that I should try next, please leave it in the comment section down below because I just love finding out about new and different sewing tools. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye!